Hello and welcome to the ProtoPod, the podcast for engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers shaping the future. Here we dive into the cutting-edge worlds of prototyping, aerospace, rapid manufacturing, high-velocity mass customization, and beyond. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. Today's guest is Fred Schenkelberg, an internationally recognized authority in the field of reliability engineering. Fred is the founder of FMS Reliability, where he works with organizations around the world to reduce product risk and boost reliability through smarter design and testing. He's also behind Accendo Reliability, an online learning platform for reliability professionals. Before founding his own firm, Fred was part of Hewlett-Packard's elite reliability team, helping instill a culture of long-term performance and quality across the company. With a background in physics and statistics, Fred brings both analytical depth and practical know-how to every conversation. Hey Fred, welcome into the ProtoPod. You're the founder of FMS Reliability. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that as we chat. I just wanted to start out and get to know a little bit more about your background. You told me offline that you're an electrical engineer by trade. How did you kind of end up finding yourself in the reliability engineering field and founding a company?
Well, I guess we only have 20 minutes, so there might not be many questions after this.
We have as much time as you need.
All right, I'll keep it short though. In college, I took electrical engineering and physics. I have a major in both, and went into the Army. And coming out of the Army, I was a shift supervisor in a polymer factory, made frost stacks and a bunch of other heating tapes and cables and stuff like that. And one day my director came up and said, "Hey, we have a customer that wants one of our products, and they want to install it in bridges in the Italian Alps." I said, "Oh, cool. I've never been there. Do I get to go there?" He goes, "No." And I said, "All right. Well, what do they need to know?" He says, "Well, they want to know if our product will last for 20 years buried in concrete." I said, "Okay. When do you need this?" And he says, "In 6 months." So I went off and learned about accelerated testing, and I didn't know it was a whole field of reliability engineering, but like many of my field is somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, you're a reliability engineer now. Go figure it out." And so I ran that test. The customer bought our product. I never did get to go see it installed in the Alps, all that good stuff. I was started as a shift supervisor in this plant, and quickly learned that all faults or problems with the product is the designer's fault. It's the design teams or development team's fault. If they made it properly, we could build it. Mm-hmm. It was we can only make it worse. We can't make it better. Those kinds of things. So that lesson has stuck with me over the years. Later, I found myself in a job in Hewlett-Packard, and it was making inkjet printers. And I found that convincing a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer that they need to change their design because of scrap or because of field problems, just because I said so, wasn't enough. So I had to learn how to really quantify why we need to change this. And it comes down to the line of, well, it's going to save us, $8.3 million in warranty costs if we change this. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to change it, I'm going to go tell your boss because they care about the money. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up going to corporate and at Hewlett-Packard and started as a side project, restarting the corporate reliability program. It had been going in the 80s and it had dropped off. I started asking really embarrassing questions like, how much in warranty are we paying? This was before, it was before it was required to be reported in federal filings and stuff like that. And eventually the senior staff got pretty upset with me and assigned me a finance person to go figure it out. And at that point, it was an $80 billion company, and we had $4 billion in warranty expenses. And it was about 4% of net revenue. And along with that is that our R&D budget was about 7% of net revenue. So it was a significant, they had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people managing the development processes, and they had nobody looking at warranty. So we took that on in the group I was in. And over the years of doing that, we reduced the warranty quite a bit and did a lot of training, did a lot of community building and everything else. And at that point, a good friend of mine said, hey, why don't you do what you're doing, but do it on your own as a consultant? So that was 21 years ago, I think.
Wow. So
and
keep going. Sorry.
So that's where I started FMS Reliability. And the day I was trying to figure out insurance and how to start a business and all that good stuff. And I decided I was going to leave. And the first voicemail I got at my office that morning was from my first client. It said, we saw you do a presentation 2 years ago. Are you available to consult? And I said, give me 2 weeks. And they said, it'll take that long to do the paperwork. So
yeah.
I left HP on a Friday and I started my first consulting gig on Monday and never looked back.
Wow. So that was a great story. It really quite shocking the impact, potential impact that reliability or lack of reliability in engineering can have, to the tune of $4 billion. I'm sure it's not all lumped into that, but I would say a vast majority of. I'm curious, you separating from HP and kind of setting out on your own, were you able to, leverage that experience in your clients, your first job to say, look, this is what I did here. And how did that kind of help you gain traction?
Well, I've advised a whole slew of people that ask me, how do you become a consultant over the years? And one of it is like that old fable or saying is, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Is you have to be known. You have to get out there. So I was doing evening meetings. I was, participating in various conferences. I was publishing in trade journals. I had a pretty active schedule in the professional realm. And so people knew of me and what I was doing. One of my assignments at Hewlett-Packard was to go to all of our 45, as we called them, loosely affiliated feudal baronies, the product divisions.
Yeah.
And how do they do what they do? How do they do reliability? So I basically did a series of interviews and one day on site, and quickly learned a lot about how they make decisions, how they decide and balance reliability versus time to market versus cost versus everything else that design teams have to deal with, and manufacturing teams and so on. Coupled with that is I often went to vendors of ours to troubleshoot problems and then eventually to qualify them. And I rarely looked at, do they have the right equipment and all that good stuff? That was trivial. Is how do they make decisions? How do they decide what they're going to focus on? Things like that. So that all really primed me to become a consultant with lots of experience. So I got to work with HP calculators all the way to supercomputers. And so I saw a lot across the spectrum of what works and what doesn't work. And so I just continued to do that when I left HP and in my consulting gig, and wrote a book about it. Accendo Reliability came out of that whole experience of what we did there. And so it was a pretty easy transition.
Yeah. So that makes a whole lot of sense that you would kind of establish yourself in that world as an expert, and therefore were kind of able to hit the ground running when you started your consulting firm. I'm wondering what you think is the separating factor for yourself as a consultant. You kind of alluded to it a little bit there, separating out the minutia or the details from, the root cause or the core of the issue. I'm wondering what pain point, I guess, of your customer that you uniquely solve.
Well, some of my customers come to me, I'd say about a third, is they had a product that failed in the field, or they are late in the development and it's just not working, or they are getting torn up by their competitors because their product's just not deemed reliable enough in a and so they're losing market share. It's usually some form of disaster where they go, oh, we need to actually do this. We don't have time, so let's get a consultant. Mm-hmm. And so never leave a good disaster, on its own. You got to take advantage of them, kind of thing. And some of them already have a good program and just need to figure out how to make it better. I like those clients because it's usually more challenging. Mm-hmm. And really polishing a good program takes more thought than trying to create a program or do stuff like that. But the types of stuff, the pain point is usually how do we change our culture so that we actually balance and consider reliability during the design process. And as you know, there's so many different factors that go into the trade-offs that every design team has to make. And reliability is just another one. Yet when you can quantify the value that it brings, why is reliability important? How much better how well do you lower the risk of a delay in the program by doing your testing earlier versus later, for example? Mm-hmm. Or warranty cost or engineering time saved, all of those different factors. Every client's a little bit different, yet somewhere they've got an underlying issue that's structural in their organization of how they make decisions. And so I'm always looking for that lever to pull to say, if you change this, if you enable your design team to have this information, if you create decent feedback from failures, if you avoid product testing, move design for reliability earlier in your program, all of those things can really change your program and how you think about it and get the benefits from it.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And again, it just almost every show we kind of hit this note just because it's such a common theme with innovators or engineers, anybody doing any sort of development. This idea of moving at velocity. So ProtoCase was kind of founded under the methodology of high velocity mass customization. And all that means is when you need to get a custom part, you can get it fast so it doesn't delay your project. All sorts of reasons why. Budget overruns, 7% of HP's budget going to R&D. The cost is immense, right? Those people are expensive sitting in those seats. And also, the quicker you move, the more quickly you can figure out what your unknowns are, right? So what are those reliability issues? And whatever form they take, moving at that speed to get to your testing, your end-to-end moment, as we would call it, under our internal project development methodology, Project DNA, the quicker you can run the entire design or development, whatever software as a full solution and test it, the sooner you know what is wrong with it. And I think that's very interesting that you've come to very much the same conclusion from the reliability perspective. I wonder if you could elaborate on maybe seeing that in your consulting work, with engineers or innovators, that same thing and the benefits that they've gotten from it. Maybe a few examples.
The Bill and Dave, the Hewlett-Packard, they often said, I don't know if they originated with the quote of move fast, break things, but it was build, test, fix, and it was make your protos as soon as possible, make a breadboard, see if it works, make the next step, see if it works, and they took systems very early as they possibly could, because they knew as well as I do that, and I'm sure you do, is that software will work great in a test bed. You put it next to the electronics that you actually have and put it in use conditions and like, oops, we forgot something, or that doesn't happen. It's the interfaces. How does a power supply work with a hard drive? If you're not taking care of vibration, not with solid state anymore. I'm showing my age a little bit, but the idea is that we need to celebrate failures. We need to understand what's going wrong and deal with it. And so some examples are every single defect or issue or problem that you see gets recorded. So really good teams, even the software teams, will pick up on hardware anomalies and say, hey, team, this isn't quite working, and vice versa. It's not shaming somebody. It's not accusing them or throwing them under the bus when you say, hey, this isn't quite working. It's all with that common goal of, well, let's understand it and get it right. And do we need to deal with it? Whereas bad organizations, I ran into one that their quality department was so bureaucratic that nobody wanted to put anything in their failure, the fracas system to record it, because they would get 600 emails that day about, are you there yet? Are you there yet? Are you there yet? And then they'd walk by their office and you're not making enough progress on this and blah, 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 blah. It was just horrendous. And so they would send them like one a week just to let them think they're doing something. But they kept their own fracas systems in their own teams. So it really hobbled the ability for the electrical engineers to tell the software team there's an issue and vice versa. So it really dampened the whole thing. And then another unit organization tried by saying, well, we'll give you a bonus if you record and fix a whole bunch of bugs. And so people were putting their to-do list in the system and knocking it off every day. And then they were competing of, well, I went and got some coffee. Oh, check, got that done. Because nobody monitored. Nobody figured out what they were doing, until they were paying all of these bonuses. On the other hand, a team that sits down every week and goes over what are the issues with the team and does the triage and prioritization and resource allocation and explains the logic of why are we doing this versus ignoring that and we need more information or not, it just becomes part of the team's DNA, their discussion. And it's okay, it's safe to bring up problems.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. The culture of failure as a requirement to succeed, and that comes in all sorts of forms. But you touched on a lot of points that remind me so much of what we do here, and that idea of really trying to separate out goal and hypothesis, and that the hypothesis is not tied to an individual person, that an idea is an idea, and that exists on its own. It either accomplishes the goal or it does not. And being transparent about that. Because, again, to your point, without that, you not only slow things down, you can get into a bureaucratic nightmare with some he said, she said, but also you I guess suffocate innovation, because there's this perceived psychological risk for individuals not to be creative and willing to try something, and for the fear of making a mistake. I wonder, I know that you mentioned Accendo Reliability. I wonder how much of your experience in FMS, easy for me to say, has kind of translated over to what you're doing with the Accendo.
Well, Accendo Reliability has two parts to the origin story. The first one was my mentor at HP, Dick Moss, was the last, was a corporate quality manager, the corporate quality manager of a staff of two. HP was very decentralized. And one of the things he saw early on was that reliability was central to our customers. It was important for our brand promise, all those kinds of things. So he created what was called a DFR list across the corporation, where there were a couple of thousand engineers on it. And it was a place that you could ask a question and it would go out to that list, and you would probably get 5 to 10 really good answers pretty quickly. So it was the best way to solve a problem is ask a lot of people, right? And social media, I don't know if it's answering more problems than it's causing, but it's a different story. It was all inside the company. It was no issues with trade secrets or NDR or non-disclosure agreements, anything else. So it could be done pretty openly inside the company. So when Dick retired, I took on that role of managing that list and making sure people got answers. So that, combined with all those interviews I did, I knew a lot of people. And so it was able to help people answer questions. And then when I left, I sent out my corporate goodbye letter kind of thing. And I got so many responses from people across the company that I had never met, didn't recognize their name at all, that said, your list, the training you did, the webinars you did, the presentations you did, the updates of the internal documents and so on, made me what I am today. I was tapped on the shoulder to become a reliability engineer, and with all the material you're providing, it allowed me to be successful. So, oh, cool, thanks. And so part of my consulting work is always in service of, if you can't add value with every discussion, you're failing, and you're not serving the customer or the client or their customers. So at a conference one day, if 3 or 4 of us consultants were sitting around having a coffee and wondering why our individual websites were just crickets. Is we had, each of us were writing a blog and updating our site regularly when we could and things like that. And it's just, we couldn't be found through Google, the other search engines of the day. So he said, well, what if we make a common site? And I'm using the model I had at Hewlett-Packard. What do we make a common site and we each publish to it, so we have 4 articles a week? Well, that started Accendo. And it was a way for us to get visibility in the search engines, but with the primary goal of not being a trade magazine. So no ads, no banner ads, no paid for articles they pay to post and stuff like that. We don't do backlinks. We don't do any of that happy stuff for any money. We do sell courses, and we had some affiliate links to some books, but it's enough to keep the lights on. The other part of it is it gives consultants and companies a platform to be seen by that audience. So I think over the last 12 years or so that we've been running this, we have over 70 different contributors. Some are originals that have been posting articles and podcasts right from the start. We have a podcast network. I think we have 12 or 13 shows in it. About 5 or 6 are still active at this moment. Trying to add another couple of them. We have close to 4,000 articles that are all free. We have close to 3,000 podcast episodes that are in the network. They're all free. We do webinars 2 times a month now, and they're free. But we also, which is very different from most organizations, and what we did at Hewlett-Packard is, like, we don't have all the answers. We don't provide all the training that's available. So a professional society like ASQ or IEEE, they only advertise and promote their own content, right? Their own courses, their own conferences. And I was the president or chair, I forget what the title was, for the ASQ's reliability division. And I said, we have one course, and frankly, it sucks. It's really a bad course that ASQ is offering. How about we offer the ones done by all these different groups so that our members know what's available? And he says, oh, you can't do that. He's like, right, fine. Well, we're going to do webinars and do it for free. Well, no, you can't do that. So we did it anyway, and so on and so on. So I rolled a lot of that stuff into Accendo because ASQ didn't want to cover it, support it. They said, you can only advertise our own books, our own courses and stuff. Like, well, the hell of that. So I made a Google Calendar, stuck it on Accendo, and it now lists hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of conferences and events and seminars and workshops that we find all over the world. And we list every conference we can find and call for papers and references and books and recommendations and best of type stuff, so that it's not a professional society or a company that only does its own thing. And it's not a trade journal where it's a bunch of advertising. And so now we're up over 70 contributors at one form or another, thousands of bits of content. So the problem we have now is, how do you get it organized so people can find what they're looking for?
Yeah, that's really incredible. I love the origin story, taking an idea that worked in one application, kind of transforming it into this, open source knowledge base for reliability. It's really fascinating. And I would imagine, for folks who are listening or currently live in that world and utilize it, tremendously helpful. I'm wondering a little bit to get a little bit more information on your podcast. I know you had, a number of them, but can you just give me a general idea of what types of topics you're covering? Is it just reliability, or is there kind of a slew of different things? Where do you guys head on those?
We start the podcast that I do primarily and has a lot of episodes. I've hosted and supported or produced 4 different podcasts over the years. Mm-hmm. The one I started with was, again, at a conference, and we're having a hallway conversation. And this young engineer, she said, how do we keep this conversation going when we're not at the conference? And I said, oh, okay, well, we'll do a podcast. And so the subtitle was Speaking of Reliability is the podcast name. And the subtitle is Friends Talking to Friends About Reliability. And it's just talking shop.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever tried talking shop, at a party with your neighbors, or barbecue with your neighbors, or with just your wife and everything else. They head over towards where the appetizers are.
Exactly.
Leave you alone.
Yeah.
I can relate. The quickest way to be left alone at a cocktail party is to start talking about statistics. It's just not party topic.
Yeah.
And so it's been a handful of different hosts. It's co-hosted. Usually each show is usually just 2 people, and we figure out what we want to talk to about on the spot, a moment before we hit the mic or turn on the mic. And every now and then we learn the hard way is that, we should have recorded that. We just talked about this for half an hour, and redoing it just doesn't work. So we started that about 10 years ago. And there were no other reliability podcasts that were aimed at the design teams or that area. There was one other in maintenance. Over time now, we've got 13 I know about in our own network, and there's probably 15 others that we're trying to get into the network, which it's free, everything else. But it's a way to get seen and found in a different way. So the topics in Speaking of Reliability is everything from that the Boeing plane with the door plug popping out, or the current disaster of the day kind of thing, to we get lots of questions from listeners saying, how do you deal with this? Or what's a good way to get your model across? I have an accelerated test and I'm not sure how to sort it out. What's the next step? How do I do this? All kinds of questions, from my boss doesn't understand what I do to how do I get started, and everything in between. Sometimes we talk about tools, we talk about failure mechanisms, and some of those we wish we had more video. It's all audio the way we do it. And it's just been ever evolving as we get different questions or different comments or what we want to talk about. And so we get online, we chat for 20 minutes, half hour, and publish. It's about it. And we're recorded our 1100 episode.
It's incredible. I definitely, you've piqued my interest for sure, and I'll have to take a listen. Not a world that I'm involved with on the day-to-day for sure, because we're more on the manufacturing, how do we service our customers' needs better, but certainly for internal projects, reliability is something that comes up and could definitely be useful to us.
Yeah. And we also, we talk about primarily product reliability stuff because that's where my background is, but not always. We also get into asset management and, factory reliability or plant maintenance, that kind of stuff. It's, reliability is universal in that, we just want it to work.
Yeah.
Whether it's your machine or your prototype you're making for a customer or you're in internal projects. And there's some hints and tips and clues about how do you think about it? How do you approach this? How do you achieve that goal that it just works?
Yeah.
Independent of whatever it is, it applies.
This is going to be a difficult question, I think, but out of the 1100, are there any that you would recommend to myself or anybody listening as ones that really stand out to you as, really meaningful or helpful in any way?
That is a tough question. The ones I get the most comments on are the ones that I do with Kirk Gray. And my wife does the editing for these, and she goes, "You guys talk over each other the whole time. It's like you're getting into a ferocious argument about something, and it's all fun. We have a great time. Yet we come to reliability with very different paths. So we challenge each other. We have, what are you thinking kind of stuff. We just get into it. And they're very lively. They're a lot of fun to listen to. Yet there's some profound principles and ideas buried in all those. We've talked about what do you do day one when you're in your job. I'm trying to think that's probably even the title. Well, let me give you a handful of ideas.
Yeah.
I'd have to take a look, but yeah, I have a list. It's a Google Doc that's, I have to scroll forever to get to the bottom of it.
That's fine. But definitely I would appreciate that, for both my own benefit, and then I think it'd be beneficial for our audience as well. And that's something that we can share. Kind of to close things out, I just wanted to ask, obviously very extensive, accomplished career. What do you see into the future for both FMS and Accendo? Where are things headed?
Well, about 6 years ago, about 6 months before all the lockdowns for COVID, my wife and I decided that I was going to give up traveling for business anymore. And so I was doing more and more stuff at home. Anyway, I wanted to spend more time with Accendo to flesh it out and still working on the navigation and finding things and stuff like that. So it was a step towards retiring in the consulting business. And I still do some. I hand off more projects than I accept. I only take the really interesting ones that piques my interest, or like, that will be a good time, and do stuff like that. Yet it gives me more time for Accendo to bring on new authors and contributors, to make sure their content's up to stuff, working on the navigation, working on features to add to it and stuff like that. I probably spend full time working on that, improving the site one way or the other. Recently, I've been doing partnerships with different organizations to exchange content, to serve each other's communities, to just getting recognized as that we're the authority. I had a publishing house contact me a couple weeks ago and wants to co-publish content that's similar to what we have on the site. I'm a source of authors for them. They encourage people to write a book. We already have about 15 manuscripts in the works. People are pretty excited about it. And it gives us some credibility with a major publisher that they agreed to co-publish with us. And so we're always looking for ways to serve our clients, our visitors for the site, and help people become better reliability engineers. So that's really what we do. But I see just a continuing evolution in the future for Accendo.
So I think that's a really great path to kind of further developing that community and what you can offer to a broader audience. I'd like to just kind of close out by, you providing some information for folks on how they join. It sounds like a super, educational community that you guys have. Is it as simple as just going to the website and signing up?
Pretty much. I think the homepage right now has a sign up for a weekly newsletter. We have about 10,000 subscribers, and it lists what's new that week. And so it'd be 8 to 10 new articles, 6 to 10 new podcast episodes, upcoming webinars, past webinars, call for papers if you do the email version of it. It's also on LinkedIn as a newsletter. And that's the easiest one, stay in touch with it. Now, some parts of the site, like the webinar recordings, it's behind, you have to sign up so we can give you a certificate that's good for professional development points of whatever system you use. And the courses and stuff, you need to be a member, and the membership is free. It's on the sidebar, I think just about everywhere. Sign up, it gives you access to the rest of the site. It's free. And if you got questions about your job or how to get started, or you're looking for something, because the search engine, quite frankly, sucks on the site, got to work on that. If there's something you're looking for and you can't find, just give us a shout. we'll find it for you or hook you up with somebody that can answer your question.
Incredible. Well, you can consider one more member here. It's definitely something I want to check out, and I'd love for you to send me over, the biggest hits of the 1100, and I'd like to start there. And I'm sure you and your cohort could definitely teach me something. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fred. This has been a very interesting chat. I love your origin story and what you're doing and how you're really, kind of liberating people from a lack of knowledge in the reliability engineering space. And I think that's very honorable. And I'd definitely love to have you back on in the future once I know a little bit more after listening to a few of your podcasts.
Okay, sure. No, that'd be great. I appreciate it, Jordan. And thanks for inviting me over, and have a great rest of your day.
You too, Fred. Bye-bye.
Bye.